Hi, this is Caroline from The Happy Sensitive. I'm here with another video in this spiritual bullshit series. In this series, I look at particularly channelings, and I pick out parts that I think are problematic. I take them out of context because I think a lot of times when people read these kinds of messages, they're not going to go back and then like reframe earlier parts of the message. Like you kind of like read it, take it at face value, keep reading it. And so even if later on some parts are maybe potentially corrected a little bit, there are still a lot of ideas that if they are presented a certain way, even if they're not meant to be understood that way, they create a lot of confusion and they create a lot of unnecessary looping, unnecessarily running around doing things that are not helpful. So in this particular message, there is a longer part following where some things are explained a little bit better, but there is still this core to it which somewhat contradicts the rest of the message, but also taps into some very, very popular ideas about love and spirituality, and this is why I want to really highlight this. So this is the part of the message I want to focus on. It's saying this is a beautiful and powerful practice for all of you to employ in your day-to-day lives. When you can see everyone else as representing an aspect of you, and then drop your resistance to that person. Okay. What does that really mean, though? Drop your resistance to that person. When I meet someone who is being a bully to me, I have resistance to them. I think it's very, very healthy to have resistance to a person who doesn't treat you well. You resist them. You are like, I want to block you. I want you out of my life. I want nothing to do with you because you're not treating me well. So if you meet someone who's treating you abhorrently, terribly, and then you take a spiritual perspective where you think, oh, well, this person is just an aspect of me, and I should drop my resistance to them and just welcome them. I mean, what does that mean? You're going to welcome them into your life? Or are you going to welcome them into your home? Like, oh, I'm resisting this person because I don't like them. I should welcome them. We should become friends. We should become friends. I had a friend once upon a time who believed that you could be friends with anybody. And that was his life philosophy, and it was kind of cute until he put it to the test and he kind of demanded it from his friends. He married someone that a lot of his friends did not really get along with, me neither. Like, fine if he liked her, but I didn't really like her that much. And he demanded that everyone should become friends with her because in his worldview, that was very possible. You could be friends with anybody. You just have to make yourself do it. And he lost half of his friends. I lost him as a friend because I don't believe that you can just make yourself be friends with anybody. Like, that's not friendship. That's like, you can be polite to someone. You can, get along up to a point. You can make an effort to see the best in them. But being friends is about much more than that. So he would have loved this idea of like, you just got to drop your resistance, right? But what that really means is that you're not allowed to have any preferences. And ideas like this can be dangerous if you're dealing with someone who is actually a potentially dangerous person. If you're dealing with a dangerous person and you have some resistance, should you just drop your resistance to them? What does that even mean? So they're saying if you have resistance to them, you can make such tremendous strides forward your spiritual evolution, and you can bring about the greatest changes on your world that you have ever seen. No pressure. No pressure. So there's all these promises too. Like, you can just drop your resistance and just welcome everyone into your everything, I guess, there will be these great, wonderful changes. So you're holding back these wonderful changes by having some resistance, which is just normal common sense. You're going to have resistance to some people. You should have resistance. In fact, one of the things I work on with a lot of my clients is helping them acknowledge and honor and accept their natural resistance that they have, but that they feel that they're not allowed to have. And a lot of people I work with have this kind of ideal of I should be getting along with everybody. And it's not okay for me to have these really strong negative feelings about someone. Well, actually, I think it's healthy to have strong negative feelings about some people. And it's healthy to have some resistance to some people. And it's healthy to keep some people out of your life. That's called healthy boundaries. It doesn't mean you have to hate them forever. It doesn't mean you have to like get worked up about them forever. But your resistance, which includes your hatred, your rage, your fear, all those feelings are also like ultimately there to show you what's safe and what's not, who belongs in your life and who doesn't. It's for you to act on. So, okay, so here in this message, they're saying truly the biggest problem we have there on earth right now, right, because this is channeling, the beings are looking down upon us and they are helping us understand what we should be doing. The biggest problem you have on earth right now is that you hold grudges. Okay. After, like, I agree, grudges are not good. They're not helpful. Because a grudge is something that is unresolved. Okay. A grudge is like a superficial awareness of a problem, but never actually feeling into it and dealing with it. A grudge is kind of a cop-out. It's like I have an issue with this person and instead of actually dealing with it, instead of actually making a decision, instead of deciding, what am I going to do? Am I going to kick this person out of my life? Am I going to have a conversation with them? Am I going to set some boundaries? Like, what am I going to do? Instead of doing that, a grudge is like, I am going to resent them in secret. So a grudge is definitely not helpful. Okay. A grudge is again, it's superficial. It's refusing to go deeper into your body, into your feelings, and going deeper into like, why do I feel this way? What's going on? What is needed? So a grudge is this like frozen in time moment of an inkling of something that isn't right, and then like not going any further with it. So yeah, grudges are not helpful. But then they go on to say, you feel separate from others. You harbor hate in your hearts. Here we go again with the hate and the spirituality. I get so tired of this. Where it's like, hatred is bad. You shouldn't have any hatred. No, hatred is not bad. Hatred is giving you a message. It's telling you something important. It's your job to process that message, to take action, and not by becoming a serial killer or something, but actually like looking inside, like, what do I need? What's really going on? And then the hatred will go. Then the message is delivered. You've understood, you've processed, you've felt it. Then it'll go. If you want more on this, I have a whole class on hatred, rage, and anger. And I have another class on anger, and I have different audio recordings on different feelings, because there's so much about this that is misunderstood that can hold you back and that can make these feelings get stuck in your system, because in your mind, you think I'm not allowed to feel this way, or you don't quite understand what the purpose of them is, or you're afraid to really feel them. And so I have a whole bunch of audio classes and podcasts and things in the Happy Sensitive Library that are about this. So I'll put the link to that below. You harbor hate in your hearts. Letting all of that go will not just bring you together as a human collective, but it will also help you to rise up, and you want to rise up. The language here I find very problematic too, because this rising up, when I think about the body, and being in your body is being grounded, being here at ground level. And a lot of people who have this desire to rise up literally are trying to get out of their body. I know that's not literally what the words mean, but in this context, there's a lot of this like ascension and higher and lighter and rising up. And a lot of that for a lot of people translates to, I want to get out of my body. I want to get out of my physicality. I want to get to something higher, as if the body is wrong. Your body is your biggest friend and your biggest tool here on this planet. Your body is how you know things, how you experience things, how you understand things. It's not something to try to get out of. Okay, going back to the channeling, you want to exist in a higher frequency state one that we refer to commonly as the fifth dimension, but you cannot get there through seeing yourself as separate than anyone else, separate from anyone else, really. Here we go again, right? Spirituality and this like, I want to be one, and this unification. Here's what I'm seeing a lot in practice with the people who are obsessed with oneness, okay? People who are obsessed with oneness, spiritual oneness, most of them have terrible, terrible boundaries. So that means that they don't really know where they stop and someone else starts. And they don't really realize when they're energetically in your space. And they don't really realize when something is appropriate and when it's not. And it fits their philosophy because we're all supposed to be one. So it's like, your space is my space. Your emotions are my emotions. It's all one big soupy mix. And it's very dysfunctional. Because yes, there is a spiritual level where we are all connected in some ways, but it doesn't mean that I am you or you are me. Like, I have my own space, and one of the things I notice with a lot of sensitive people is that they struggle to kind of identify, like, where am I in that space? And so if I'm having a conversation with someone, with a client who is struggling in that way, often I notice it in the conversation. I notice them kind of like moving into my space or not being in their body. And I will tell them about that. I'll tell them what I notice and tell them what they can do. And there's a lot of confusion and overwhelm in this like space of like oneness. It's very, very stressful to kind of be everywhere and to kind of be all over the place. It's not a spiritual, high, elevated, wonderful experience. It's an experience of chaos and feeling lost. And so when I have a conversation with someone and really show them like, okay, you're not really grounded right now and you're kind of flying all over the place. Here's how you get back. Try this, practice this. And they really do it. What they notice is things like, oh, I can breathe more freely. I feel calmer. I feel less stressed out. I feel more collected. I feel like life is simpler. I feel like there's a lot I can let go of because I don't actually have to do all those things or know all those things or feel all those things. It can just be me here. So this oneness and connected and like erasing all boundaries is kind of touted as this kind of ideal. But I see a lot of people living that way and they're not happy and their life is not functioning. Right? As people, we need boundaries. Boundaries are very, very helpful. And it's nice to know that on a very like abstract spiritual level, like, yes, we're all interrelated, right? And there are moments where it's helpful to think, it's helpful to not see yourself as just this completely 100% separated container, like how you respond to the world and how the world responds to you. There are things that you can reflect on that are helpful and thinking like, how is this also about me? How is this not just about the other person? How is this also, like, maybe I'm a little bit more similar to this person than I'd like to admit. Or maybe there's something about this person that triggers me that is helpful for me to look into, right? So there's connections in that way. But it doesn't mean we all need to be like one soupy, floaty mix all together and just kind of like blend into, like it's almost like these channelings are almost like, let's just melt. Jump into the frying pan and just melt. And melt together with all the other cheeses. And you are the blue cheese and they are the Swiss cheese. And you're all just melting together into oneness. And it's one big sticky goo and that's enlightenment. And we're all like in the fifth dimension now. And it's like, no, it's just a darn like stringy, sticky mess now. That is not actually helpful. Okay, enough of that rant. Okay, creating division puts you in a third dimensional mentality and keeps you stuck. So there's a big difference between polarization and saying you will never understand me because you are of a different race or country or like orientation and we are 100% separate and you just don't get it and Like that's a kind of separation that's very, very extreme, and that's definitely unhelpful, right? It's good to look at like, how are we similar? How do I understand this? How do you understand me? You know? But that doesn't mean that separation is bad, and it doesn't mean you have to give up your separation to like ascend to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension. Calling all borders for the fifth dimension. You have to leave your boundaries behind. That's not how it works. Okay, is there anything else here? I saw this one and I was like, oh my God, I have so much to say about this one. I think with all of these kinds of messages, when you don't take it too literally, you can always glean something from it. You can always look at, okay, are there ways that I'm closing myself off from people in a way that is not helpful? But interestingly enough, in my journey into learning more about energy and healing work and all of that, I have actually learned more and more about needing to be separate. And I see this with my clients too, like they need to learn to be separate. They need to learn to be okay with being alone up to a certain point. And what I find is that this obsession with oneness often comes deeper down from this fear of loneliness, this fear of being different, this fear of not being understood by others. And then just like wanting to like blend with people. It's like blend and like I just want to lose myself and just not be me by myself, right? And so the problem with that is like these kind of channelings almost elevate that fear into some kind of goal in itself. Like as if the fear is like telling you like, yes, loneliness and separation are bad. Like you should just blend with everyone. But really what it's doing is feeding that fear of I'm afraid to say no. I'm afraid to be rejected. I'm afraid to be alone. I'm afraid to stand in my power. I'm afraid to be different. I'm afraid to be the only one who. But if you want to be yourself, it's like this is the thing. You want to be authentic, right? You want to be yourself. You want to be authentic. How can you be yourself and be authentic when you're just kind of blended together with everyone else? So there's something inherent in getting to know yourself, being authentic, being yourself that comes with a certain dose of separation and loneliness. But it doesn't mean you have to suffer. It doesn't mean that's some kind of like horrible experience, but you do have to come to terms with that sense of separation. It's like, oh, you know what? My experience is not their experience. And also on the energy level, I've just found there's, like I said, there's a lot of people who love to blend, and there are also a lot of people who love to energetically invade. They like to be up in everybody's business. They like to see what they can get. They like to hook into other people's energies. And it's not healthy. And you actually need to have resistance to these people. You need to have a serious amount of resistance so that they stay away and they stay out of your space. Because when you let them in, they will create a total mess. Because they're not aware of what they're doing and they don't really care how it affects you. I talk more about that on my website. You go look at the articles on psychic narcissism. But you need resistance and separation to function. And there are a lot of unhealthy people in this world, unfortunately, right? And so this is a bit of a kumbaya message. It's like, we're all wonderful and amazing. We're all super healthy and balanced. And we can all just blend together and be great. It's kind of like saying, get together with the people in your community and just create one big bank account for everyone. Think about that. The people you know in your neighborhood, all of them, no exceptions. You're going to drop your resistance. You're going to drop your let go of any boundaries, and you're going to put all your money together into one big bank account, and anybody can take the money out anytime. because you're going to make tremendous strides forward in your spiritual evolution, right? And then you can bring about the greatest changes on your world that you've ever seen. How do you think that's going to function in practice? And you're like, but I dropped my resistance to that person. I mean, I knew they had an addiction and I knew they spent way too much money. And I was wondering where their 3 super fancy cars came from. But I wanted to do the right thing and I wanted to drop my resistance. And I wanted to be a spiritual person. But now my money's gone. How did that happen? It happens because messages like this are spiritual bullshit. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly show you some things in the Happy Sensitive Library that are relevant to the conversation I've just had by my lonesome, but you were listening, so there's kind of a two-way conversation. Okay, so this is the Happy Sensitive Library. This is where I have a whole bunch of tools, techniques, helpful tips, explanations to help highly sensitive people go from highly sensitive to happy sensitive. This is the stuff you can do on your own, right? Not everything, you can't do everything on your own, but everything I think you can do on your own, I put it in here. And I keep adding to it. So I want to show you, let's go down, this is like explanation of what it, okay, so here's a course curriculum. So difficult feelings made easier is something I think is very, very important. I have different classes on, how to best navigate emotions, what to do when meditation doesn't work, what to do with anger. I taught a few live classes on that. Those recordings are in here. I have worksheets, a meditation for when you're angry, what to do with rage, what to do with anger, hatred, and blame, what to do with grief and sadness, powerlessness, depression, anxiety, like all these difficult feelings that are often vilified or that people say just like try to get away from it. What's really important, especially when you're highly sensitive, because when you're highly sensitive, a big part of your functioning is determined by how you deal with your feelings. And what I mean with that is if you are blocking, suppressing, fearing your feelings, you're blocking, suppressing, fearing yourself. And this is technically true for everyone, but it's more noticeable for highly sensitive people because our emotions are more pronounced, okay? We are feeling people. That's who we are. But we live in a society that's constantly telling us to shut down and be rational and not feel. And that creates a lot of inner conflict. So for us, it's really important to learn, understand, and feel and dare to feel our feelings in a healthy way. And so I've made a whole bunch of guided audios on, how to do that, what all these different feelings are about, how they're trying to help you, because they are. And I've put it all in the library. I also have a course that I wanted to point out here. Tension tactics is one I often recommend to clients. This is a live class I taught once. This is really about if you feel tension in a room and it makes you really uncomfortable, what do you do with that? And this is particularly an important course and a helpful course if you are a peacemaker. You want nothing more than everybody to just get along, and you're constantly trying to diffuse tension. You're trying to calm everyone down and make them feel better, but it's exhausting. Here's a whole other way to deal with that, and I explain that in Tension Tactics for HSPs. HSPs, highly sensitive people. And forgiveness, this class I wanted to highlight as well, because we're talking about difficult emotions, and in the audio just now, and in the explanation just now, I brought up grudges. We talked a little bit about hatred. Often this connects to forgiveness, right? And forgiveness is such a huge spiritual topic as well. It's like, oh, you just have to forgive everyone. What does that actually mean? And how do you truly forgive? Because what I often see happening is there's such a pressure to forgive that people start skipping steps. And they're skipping the steps where they're actually doing the most important part of the work, because they're so afraid that they're feeling things they're not allowed to feel, and they're having thoughts they're not allowed to have. And there's all this taboo about like negativity, right? And what's actually really important, if you want to truly forgive, if you want to truly move on, if you truly want to resolve situations, you have to learn to go through the muck, go into the muck, go into the difficult feelings, and understand like what those are trying to do for you, because they're trying to help you out. Forgiveness is not a matter of just running away from your hatred, or running away from your fear, or running away from your resentment. It's not a matter of pushing those feelings down. It's not some kind of like thinking about it differently. It's not a shift in perspective. It's a very, very body-based, feeling, nitty-gritty, icky work to do. There's parts of it that can be very hard, but that's the difference between true forgiveness and just doing a little cute spiritual bypass where you're telling yourself a story and you're trying to be above it. Like, if you're trying to forgive someone, don't try to be above it. Be in it. Be deeply, deeply in it. Go under in it and learn how to crawl through all those feelings. Crawl through until you get through to the other end. And when you do that properly, you truly have a big shift. You're not just pretending. You don't have to like convince yourself. You'll notice like something has really changed, and that person you were so angry or upset with, now everything's neutral. You've sorted it out, whatever it needed to be, and you don't need the other person to be on board. That's the thing. Often people worry, well, what if this other person doesn't want to engage in this forgiveness process? Forgiveness is something you do on your end. It's about you moving forward, but it's not a matter of just sidestepping the harm. It's not a matter of saying, oh, well, they stepped on me and they just squashed me like a little bug, but it's okay because I'm a forgiving person. I mean, that's just total bullshit, right? So forgiveness, real forgiveness, also includes other things. It includes, you have to look at your real life, what is actually possible and necessary in your life with this person, with this situation. And I take you through the steps for that in this class on forgiveness. It's not about love. It's not about love. This is a really, really huge misunderstanding to think like, oh, if I'm not forgiving this person, I'm just not loving enough. It has nothing to do with love. And I show you the process that you can go through to actually anything or anyone. You can end up in the place of forgiveness that is real and that'll last. Okay, I think those were the ones I wanted to highlight. Yeah. I will put the link to the Happy Sense of Library below so you can check it out in your own time and kind of click through and see what's in there. I've also added something new. Hold on. Such a big page, you get lost. Well, if you click this button, purchase your library membership, you'll see the options. I've added a new option. So you can get streaming access to everything for 24 hours. So if you're like, hey, this sounds really cool, but I'm not really sure, for €5, which is about the same in US dollars, it's about $5. You can just try it out for a full 24 hours. So you can take a few different classes, so pick a Sunday or Saturday or whenever you have time and say, okay, I'm going to purchase 24 hours of access, going to click through, try some things, see if this is helpful. And then, worst case scenario, you spent $5, right? Like you can get an ebook for $5. Like there's lots of really, really good detailed courses in here. So I've added that so you have like a real way to try it out where you don't have to commit to a bigger monthly membership or a year pass right away. All right. Hope this is helpful.